Welcome to Just Coast, Explore Moody Gardens podcast. As a public nonprofit educational destination on beautiful Galveston Island, this podcast is dedicated to our mission, utilizing nature in the advancement of rehabilitation, conservation, recreation, and research. In this third episode with Jeff Corwin, we'll talk about Expedition Chesapeake and what he wants audiences to learn about the country's largest estuary.
So tell us a little bit about this film, Expedition Chesapeake.
So Expedition Chesapeake is a project that's been near and dear to my heart for 10 years. So it began as this highly funded multi-state project where we were going to teach the world through this incredible spectacle of a film, this large format film, about this important watershed and estuary called the Chesapeake. Then a couple of governors changed over and they took that money away and we had to start over. Lo and behold, we found the money, we made the film, we finished it last year. And it uses the veneer, it uses the lure of adventure and fun and journey and exploration, all the things human beings are hardwired to do, to discover and bumble and explore and find new things, to tell the story of this estuary. It is the largest estuary in North America, at least in the United States. It's 200 miles in length from when it begins in the Susquehanna in New York. It encompasses everywhere from New York to Pennsylvania to Maryland to Delaware, multiple states. Its historical provenance is remarkable. It's where our nation began. It's home to 2,000 important species. It's ground zero for successes and failure in conservation. It's also heavily loved, sometimes loved to death, by the 15 million people that live it. It's on the other side of the country, but yet you can find its doppelganger right here in Galveston Bay. The way both of these important estuaries are unique but similar is a part of that story, which is why it's important to bring that story to here, to Moody Gardens.
Excellent. How did you originally get involved with the film?
Well, I got involved with the film because I have a passion. I live in Massachusetts. I'm an active outdoors person. I love to be outside. I hunt, I fish, I'm a conservationist, I'm a wildlife biologist, and I love that connection. I started to befriend a couple of retired wildlife biologists but guys that and girls that worked in natural resources from very high up to grassroots level. And I started to really discover the beauty of the Chesapeake, the history. I love navigational maritime history. And I love decoys and all that stuff. So I just began developing this interest in the Chesapeake. And then I got approached by the Whitaker Center, this great science museum, and they asked me if I'd want to help create it and host it, present it. And I just couldn't pass it up. And it's been an up and down road, and finally we got to that point where we were able to line up the stars and deliver the spectacle.
Well, it sure turned out well. The theme of water is central to the movie, and it probably is central to most of your life's work. Are there any comments or points you want to make about the importance of water in our daily lives?
Well, we all need water, and water is the elixir of life for every ecosystem. If you're in an ecosystem without a lot of water, the most remarkable adaptations are to survive without water. From a lizard that can, through capillary movement in Australia, drink water through its fingers and up through its mouth, a reverse drool into its lips, and as the thorny devil does in the red center, or how all these creatures manage to survive with either too much water or not enough water. Water is instrumental to life. Yet, despite all the water, it's like that water everywhere, but not a bit to drink, or not a drop to drink. A significant population on our planet, statistically, it's 60 to 70% of our people are water deprived around the world. The lack of water causes wars.
Yes.
Too much water destroys towns. Water, which we think is the panacea, becomes the devil's advocate with climate change as it rises, as storages of fresh water become shrunken up as they melt and affect our planet. So water is key, and it's the liquid thread that ties everything together. And we're learning that the hard way through the need to conserve it. So water is the big part of the story. I mean, this whole ecosystem thrives on water.
This film is clearly very personal and important to you. Were there any heartwarming moments that kind of stand out in the entire process?
Well, there's many heartwarming moments. Just things that, again, I think the spirit of this film is really it's a spirit of hope, that it's not too late, that we have seen the Chesapeake become healthier in recent times, not what it was 2 centuries ago, but it's now become stable enough where through proper management, species have returned. To see the abundancy of osprey, to see bald eagles, to go to Pine Creek in the headwaters of the Chesapeake and to see otters, freshwater otters that were absent for 100 years because of mining. So there are many, many examples of where we are seeing really a positive effect of people wanting to make a difference. And I think that's the most important message, is that everyone has a power to make a difference. And I want a young little kid that maybe who feels like they're on the edge of life or society or in the fringe or disenfranchised to think, I can connect to this. I could be that inner city kid that becomes a scientist someday. So ultimately, the big lesson of this film is you can't protect what you don't love, and you'll never love it if you never make that introduction. So we want to introduce the Chesapeake and have that be a springboard for places like Galveston Bay.
Well, I think there's a definite connection there just between the ecosystems and the similarity. And I would further say that we probably are hosting some of the Chesapeake Bay ospreys down here during the winter months.
Absolutely.
So we are connected in more ways than one. In closing, is there anything that you would want our listeners to know about steps they can take to improve life around our estuary?
Well, I think the first recognition is that you make a difference. And because you make a difference, it means you have to take responsibility for your actions. And that is both large and small. And small is your everyday use of plastics. Everywhere around the world, we talk about all these heady issues that seem unsurmountable. But there are things like plastic that are the direct result of a moment of negligence or irresponsibility. You can make a decision on when to use plastics and when not to use them, and when you do use them, how to repurpose that and make it more evergreen. We have seen people rethink straws. All around the world, people are rethinking straws. Now everyone says, oh, well, that doesn't make a difference. Rethinking straw use, single-use plastics, does make a difference. Changing our use with where we get our resources from, the politicians you vote for, the organizations you support. And as I said to you earlier, the great lesson I've learned in 2.5 decades of traveling the world, of which I go around the world like an electron loop twice a year, 22 countries, 30 countries a year, is that it's your own backyard. People from Galveston want to come back to their own backyard. And it's the nature that draws us. We are hardwired to connect to this resource. And I think bringing it to your backyard is important. So I've become very focused on local conservation organizations. The big ones that do wonderful things, they're wonderful. But those little organizations that are restoring a tiger beetle, or your little organization that's rebuilding a marsh along a causeway, that's what makes a big difference.
Thank you. Is there anything else that you would like our listeners to know about you or your work?
I think the most important thing I would want people to know is that my journey in life has really been about fulfilling a passion that fulfills and satiates a void, which is what drives us all. And for me, that appetite is never satiated because I just love to be out there connecting to nature in any way possible. It's why I live, where I've raised my children. And I think that was my passion. I think people, if you can find a way to harvest and tap into that thing that makes you feel good, whether it's on a regular basis or whether it's through your career, I think that's the beauty of who we are and where we live in this country. And that's what I would love to encourage people to do, is to make that connection. And when you can share that, it's not just great for the people that get the message, but it validates your purpose. So whether it's baking something or painting something or working with people or working with nature, it's polishing that jewel inside of you so you can kind of glimmer and let it share with the world.
Good point. Do you have any other upcoming projects that we should be on the lookout for?
Well, I have a number of projects. I have some projects I'm very excited about that I'm actually taking a break from being in front of the camera, that I've stepped behind the camera. So I have a big series coming out on Nat Geo Wild, which is called Alaska Animal Rescue. And I have been working to create this series for about 4 years, and it's finally happened. And it launches in April on Nat Geo Wild. I don't know what time, so you'll have to look it up or what day it is. But it highlights people on the front lines of saving the last great wild frontier in North America, from land, sea, and air. So from the Alaska Raptor Center to the Sea Life Center in Seward to the Alaska Wildlife Conservation Station, we're working with these heroes that are reintroducing wood bison and saving bald eagles and helping stellar sea lions. So I'm very excited about that. That's a big project I'm working on. I'm working on also a very important series that I think will probably be the most important series I do, called Legacy. And it's a big production that kind of has us face the challenges we are now confronting. And with this concept, the idea of we're the last generation going to the front lines with unlikely heroes that are trying to save the planet.
Excellent work, Jeff. Well, we thank you for your time. The new film is Expedition Chesapeake. It's now playing here at Moody Gardens. And for more information on events and activities, please visit moodygardens.org.
Thank you for listening to Just Coast Explore Moody Gardens podcast. Join us next time.